Hello, everybody. What's up? Welcome to session number 9 of the Bebop Rewatch podcast, a podcast from Wulong Talks. My name's Jason. I'm joined, as always, by the Rustin Kid, Rich Kid. Rich Kid, say what's up.
What's up?
Cool. Well, I'm all good. You're all good. You're all here with us. Thank you for joining us. And on this week's session, we're going to dive into session number 9, which is called Jamming with Edward. This is the introduction of sneakily my favorite character from Cowboy Bebop, and that's Ed or Edward, or well, the full name we'll get into later on in the episode. But first off, Rich, how do you feel about meeting Ed for the first time in the show?
You know what? I think you pretty much banged the nail on the head. Is I think he's sneakily everybody's favorite character. That's the thing.
Bro.
Oh yeah. Oh no, but Jay, you just spoiled it.
I did. Yeah. Sorry.
But the thing is, in fact, funnily enough, I'm sure like you don't. I think there's different dubbings, or say like you see like the original dubbing. That do they confirm that she's a girl from the get go, or isn't it later on down the line?
I think they do pretty much from early doors.
Mm.
Yeah, because I mean, when we get into the episode, I think the police officers actually confirmed that she's a girl pretty early on. But so yeah, I mean, listeners, the reason for the confusion obviously is because the first name of this character is Edward. This is a name that she's given to herself. You'll find out more about why she calls herself Edward and what her full name is, as said later on in the episode as well. But yeah, I mean, this is like, for an Edward introduction, this is about as good as it gets, really, because it pretty much sums up her character perfectly within this episode. So yeah, you're really gonna be in for a wild ride on this one. Very much so. But yeah, I mean, like, how did you find the episode overall in terms of compared to what we've talked about so far and what we've watched so far? How does this episode stand up?
It's just a really, really nice introduction, and everything is just it just flows. Like, there's been a few episodes where we've had to rewatch them, and I've kind of gone like, okay, wait a minute, I still love the show and I still like this episode, but this episode might not necessarily be my favorite. But I think that comes in hindsight, where you're kind of like, you're just waiting for a particular episode to happen that you know, one of my favorite parts might take place, where there might be like a shootout in like a church or something, and I'm just like, shit. And if you sit through this episode first before I get to meet Vicious and things like that. But it's just a nice different tone, and once again it opens up a little part of the Cowboy Bebop world, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. I mean, when we kind of start talking about the actual episode, which we've never really thought about, but I keep on mentioning it throughout this whole episode, and it's something that it kind of caught me by surprise, and I never really noticed it in all of the times where I've watched it. It's only now where we're sitting down and we're scrutinizing it with like a with like a drawing pen. I'm just like, shit, they've made that, they keep on making allusions to that, but it's never really dawned on me that it actually is what they're saying. And I know, listeners, that sounds really, really cryptic, but it's gonna make sense when we start talking about it. But this episode is just a nice, fun episode, and it's a nice introduction to, like I said, I think to sneakily everybody's favorite character in this show.
I think Ed is low-key everybody's favorite character, as you said. Like, definitely. She's just brilliant, and you'll find out why soon, listeners. But I think this is the first kind of straight-up comedy episode that we've had so far, isn't it? I mean, most of them have had like humor of some kind, apart from maybe Sympathy for the Devil. Most of them have had some type of humor in them, but this is the first straight up like comedy episode that they've done. The first one that we've come across in the series so far. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the change of pace, because there was, one of the things that we love about this show, listeners, and why we love talking about it is because, Cowboy Bebop has been so good at straddling so many different genres. You've had, we have action, you get drama, you get thriller, and you get comedy. And later on, we'll be touching on some horror as well. But it covers the different genres so well and does it so skillfully that you don't even feel like there's an unevenness to the tone, which can happen sometimes when you're trying to do multiple types of genres within a TV series. But Bebop, I mean, the writing and the visuals and the timing of everything is so strong that you rarely kind of feel out of place with anything, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what you think about the comedy in this episode and whether you found it funny or that it dated badly or anything. Because there were one or two lines that I was a bit like, yeah, that's kind of aged a bit now. And I don't know if in today's world that would fly so much. But yeah, I mean, what did you think of the comedy in it?
Look, listen, I think the comedy aged perfectly for me. But like, I'm ever so slightly biased when it comes to Bebop, though. So, like I said, I mentioned earlier on, there's certain episodes where I might have gone back and thought, hey, that wasn't as good as it was. But then it's because there's that part of me that wants to jump to the good parts. But then in my head, I've always said this, and I'll always stick by it. A bad episode of Bebop is better than certain good episodes of shit shows, if that makes any sense. So I like it. And I mean, I just think it stays within the tone of the show, which is one of the reasons why where we keep on talking about the writing of the show, is that it's just perfectly done. It doesn't seem to me, it doesn't seem forced, or it doesn't seem like something that wouldn't fly now, because it still feels very much confined in the world that we're starting to basically, not even start to learn about. We're 9 episodes deep in now, so nothing right now seems out of place. Everything just seems to flow quite seamlessly. So the comedy is literally just the flip side of the sadness that we may have seen, or the violence that we may have seen. It's all perfectly balanced for me. And yeah, I like this episode, man. I really, really like it.
Cool, man. All right, well, let's dive into it and get on with it. So, listeners, I said, if you've been following along with the series of podcasts we've been doing about this, then you should be on session 9. Bear in mind that obviously we're talking about the episode as a whole, so there will be spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, you probably shouldn't be listening to this podcast yet. But the episode begins by kind of taking us to Earth, which I think that is the first time we've gone to Earth in the series so far. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're actually out on Earth. Well, we're above Earth, actually. It opens just above Earth with some satellites that are orbiting the Earth. And these satellites begin to fly lasers onto the planet's surface. And they begin to kind of put symbols and images on the surface of the Earth from where they've been placing these symbols down, and it looks like kind of crop circles and things like that. So if you ever wanted to know where crop circles come from, it comes from a rogue space satellite up above the Earth. So yeah, we get all of these images from the episode out of the gate. And then it quickly jumps to Edward, to showing us Edward straight away. And if you haven't seen Edward yet, Edward is very kind of slender, has really bright red hair, wears goggles, and I guess you'd call them goggles. Yeah, no, I suppose they're goggles.
Yeah, they are goggles.
Yeah. So she wears goggles and always has like her laptop computer by her side or something like that. And when we get her, when we first meet her, she's just kind of surfing the net and listening to the radio and listening to different things. She starts hacking into a specific server, and she finds out that the Bebop is scheduled to land on Earth. She gets very, very excited for the first time, and she'll get very excited many times in this episode because that's what she does. But she gets excited when she finds out that the Bebop is coming over. Why she gets excited, we don't know. We assume that it's because she knows about the Bebop, although there's no other evidence kind of given in the episode to suggest that she had prior knowledge of their existence. But you're kind of left to assume that because she's a hacker and she's good with computers and things like that, she's probably been keeping up on events with the Bebop. Now, while she's doing all of that, there's a kind of a weather broadcast that keeps warning of rock showers coming down. And just as she kind of is getting excited and shouting, one of these rock showers begins and starts hitting the location that she's at. And one of these massive rocks hits right in front of where she is and blows everything up in front of her. And then she falls backwards towards the camera and looks directly at the camera. And I can't remember off the top of my head what she said now. But there was something in the phrase, and I really can't remember it. I'm at a loss now to remember what she said. But basically, it was along the lines of, "Oh, there were rock showers here," as if she wasn't just listening to the radio saying that there were going to be rock showers there. So it shows you kind of how like contrary Ed can be, basically. After that, we kind of cut to the Bebop itself. And we see everybody's kind of just going through their normal routine. So I think Ayn is cleaning herself. Jet, I think, is pruning a bonsai tree at a certain point. Faye's doing her nails, and Spike is washing the swordfish or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there's a news program going on in the background. And the news program is kind of talking about an 8 million bounty that's been 8 million wulong bounty that's been placed on a person who they believe is responsible for hacking these orbiting satellites around the Earth and is causing them to create these land carvings on the surface of the Earth. And this is a really funny scene because the news anchor is joined by an expert, and immediately when I saw him, Rich, I thought of remember the meme, the internet meme. Listeners, you follow us, so you know what memes are. But you know the dude with the crazy hair that you always see in memes, and he's from like some program on the History Channel, and he's got his hand slightly apart, and then the caption usually always says "aliens, dude" or "aliens, man" or something like that.
No, I haven't seen this.
Ah, dude, you must have done, man.
Was it on Twitter? If
it's one of them things that pops up everywhere on social media every so often. Whenever somebody says something ridiculous, they usually post this meme up with the tagline "aliens" on it. And that doctor just reminded me of that immediately because he's super creepy, he's super obsessed, and I think he says something along the lines of that the carvings are from aliens and it's all part of an Earth's conspiracy or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the news anchor kind of plays it off and is like, "Yeah, all right, you're chatting rubbish, mate." And then the camera kind of shifts back to the news anchor, but off screen you can still hear the professor guy like just cackling away to himself and still talking. And I was just like, "What? Like, what the hell? Like, this dude is on one, man." And like literally, it's like he's got his 5 seconds of fame, and he's just like, "Yep, this is my moment. I'm not gonna let it slip. I'm gonna keep talking. You can move the camera, but I'm still gonna keep talking." And that just really made me laugh. That I thought was a really nice touch. I really enjoyed that.
That scene killed me. The thing is, the other thing that made me laugh is that his name is clearly a play on Yuri Geller. That's number one. But then he looked like and he sounded like he didn't. The only thing he looked and he sounded like Yuri Geller, Peter Law or Peter Lorre.
Yes, he did. Yes, he
was like, hey guys, aliens, guys. Oh.
Yeah, he sounded exactly like Peter Lorre. Actually, yeah, that's bang on. For the American listeners who don't know, Yuri Geller is somebody who was very popular in the UK
and the States as well. The States at some point.
I don't even know if they'd really know him in America that much, really. But effectively, he was a charlatan who for some reason had managed to convince people in the late 80s and early 90s that he was a psychic, and that he could make things happen just through the power of thought. So his favorite TV trick was like he used to go on TV and bend spoons and break them by rubbing the part where the spoon kind of joins the handle. But he would never, ever do it with anything other than a specific type of spoon. And if you could picture this spoon in your mind, listeners, it's those very kind of cheap metal spoons that you get from your occasional corner store and you know, in America, your dollar store or something like that. And basically, it's the type of spoon that's very easy for anybody to bend if they're putting a bit of effort into it, because they're not very well made. But for some reason, because he could do this, he convinced everybody he was a psychic. He also claimed to, at various points, have affected sporting results. He claimed he won a football match for a team by sucking the ball into the net.
Oh, yeah.
For a goal. He was friends with Michael Jackson, right? Or claimed,
No. There's pictures and stuff of them chilling, you know, drinking Jesus juice.
Yeah. Well, that was when Mike needed some guidance, man. Somebody to say like, "Yo, like, listen." But yeah, basically, Richard's comparison is spot on, because he's very much, this character is very much a charlatan like him, and Peter Lorre is an actor from, I guess, what, the 40s and 50s, I guess.
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah. And again, he's somebody that you're probably familiar with. Even if you don't know the name, you definitely know the face and the voice. As Richard said, he had a very distinct way of speaking. And he had a lot of popular movie roles around sort of, as I said, the late 40s and early 50s and things like that. So yeah, this guy is super weird. But anyway, as I said, they kind of say in this news announcement that there is this 8 million Wulong bounty on whoever is hacking these satellites and making them draw the symbols on the Earth. So obviously, the thought of a 8 million Wulong bounty pricks up the ears of the crew, and it, in particular, obviously, Faye, who loves money, and Jet, who knows that the crew need money. So they're both kind of keen to do it, but Spike decides that he's not interested, because I think he says hackers are boring or something like that, right? Yeah. So yeah, he decides he's not interested. So Jet and Faye head off to go and find this hacker. So meanwhile, Ed is kind of having some fun with like this remote control toy that we don't know where she's got it from, but I assume she probably built it herself. And when I saw this scene, I was like, shit, that's a drone, you know? Like, she built a drone way before drones were even a thing. So that if you've got a drone at home, yeah, this kid had one like years ago. I mean, they obviously existed in Japan for quite a while, but yeah, in the show they'd actually put this drone in as her toy. And considering when the show was made, that's quite impressive foresight there. So yeah, she's having fun with this thing, and then the Earth Police show up at her location to kind of investigate this idea that there's a tracker there, that there's a hacker there. Sorry. So these two cops kind of burst through the door of this building that she's staying in. And Ed kind of says hello, and it's just kind of doing Ed stuff, like waving her hands in the air rhythmically for no reason. And then obviously the cops are there to try and take her down, but they're shocked when they see this little girl there. But she manages to use her device that she's using to control the drone toy to take control of the cop ship. She starts to take control of the ship, and she crash lands it into the planet outside that they're at. And there's another funny shot where the two cops are just basically at the window looking out as she's controlling the ship and crashing it. And I think one of the cops like says to everyone, "Oh my god, how are we gonna get home?" And like the other cop is like, "I don't know." And they're literally just left to kind of watch Ed making fun of them, basically, and screwing with their ship, which was hilarious to me. After that, Ed begins to start some hacking again, and I love the way that they kind of portrayed the internet in this show, because it reminded me so much of the movie Hackers, which I know is a movie that we both love.
Yeah, hack the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Hackers is just like, it's just brilliant, listeners. You gotta watch it, man. It's a classic. It's a cult classic for sure. I mean, it's where kind of Angelina Jolie's star was born, really.
Yeah.
It was in that movie. So yeah, man, go check that out. But yeah, basically the portrayal of the internet. So if you can imagine, it's not looking like your average kind of Google Chrome desktop web browser or something like that. It looks like a 3D kind of thing, almost a bit like Minority Report, but without the projection of the images. So anyway, Ed uses her skills to hack into the Bebop while Spike is asleep, and she manages to find out that the crew are going after the satellite. Then at this point, the Bebop lands on the planet Earth itself in the water, and Faye and Jet decide that basically they're going to split up. Faye is going to go and investigate the antennas which the hackers could have used, and Jet decides he's going to go into the nearest town on the planet and try and find some information, basically, and do some old-fashioned police work. So flying over kind of Earth, Faye learns that there's like loads of different transmitters in the area. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint where exactly the hacker is because of that. And there's a really, really brilliant scene where Jet is walking through this kind of disused, I think it's a disused spaceship or something like that, no, sorry, it's not a disused spaceship, it's a train station. So it's a disused train station, and some people are obviously living in this train station and have made it home. So Jet goes around and speaks to a number of people, and it's all done POV. So all the people that he's speaking to are speaking directly into the camera, as opposed to speaking to Ed. As opposed to speaking to Jet on the screen. That I really liked. That was a really kind of clever touch, because again, it's not something that you kind of see often in anime. Anime can kind of take a linear way to telling stories at certain times, but that reminded me of something like Shortcuts, or a movie like that, where there's kind of a lot of people talking directly to the camera and talking directly to the audience. But some of the descriptions of Ed are hilarious. I mean, Richard, what did you think of like that kind of scene and how it played out, and the way that they were describing Ed to Jet?
Well, the thing is, you know what? It's crazy, because forget even the descriptions that they're giving of Ed. It's the people giving the descriptions themselves.
Yeah.
Everybody. You're getting like a rock and roller. There's like an Asian guy. There's like a hippie stoner. There's like a lady and a cat. And it's just one of those things where it's weird, because some of them seem really outlandish, and I think they obviously do it to kind of throw you off. And then some of them are given, or if not all of them, are given them a description, and they might say 5 things in this description, but one of them kind of pertains, at least one of them at each description will pertain to the character of Ed. And you're just like, yeah, they're not far off. There's one person who says like, yeah, man, like he's like this super hacker, and he's like 8 foot tall and a basketball player.
Yeah.
I just thought of Kareem from the episodes from near the beginning of the season.
Oh, Hakeem.
So Hakeem, yeah. And I'm just like, well, he's not 8 foot, but he is a super hacker. But she's a super hacker. So it's one of those things where it's like, I like the fact that they're kind of, give or take, that they are kind of explaining the character of Ed to you. Like, you're just like, oh well, they actually are quite right. But I do agree with you on the whole thing of that this whole first person perspective, because like I said, number one is something that's not seen in anime. If like, well, I don't remember seeing it in any form of anime where they've done this type of thing. And it's the first time they've done it in this show as well. And so once again, like you said, like, you know, like we keep on talking about the whole reason that that Bebop is such a good show is because each episode, well, not each episode, but you'll get particular episodes and it will be, you could see the influence that it has outside of the genre on which it's based on. So it may be, you know, I mean, like you banged the nail on the head when you said like Robert Altman's Shortcuts. It just has that feel of just like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna place the camera and you're just gonna talk. It might even not necessarily be a script, but you're just gonna talk. And there's something in the way how all of these characters are speaking, even though it's a cartoon, it feels even more natural because the scene is just so stabilized and it's just central on this person. And you see each of these people for what, like 5 seconds, 10 seconds?
Yeah, it's that. Yeah.
And the fact that you're getting all of these different types of people as well is just like, yeah, like it just makes it feel a little bit more real because because that means they're talking to a plethora of people that are based all around. You don't know where they're based, but they're based in different places, obviously. And you're just like, I like this. This feels real. I want to meet Ed. I've met her before, but I want to meet her now because everything that they're just describing just sounds like her, and I want to see more of her. Yeah, it's such a good scene, and like I said, each person only talks about 10 seconds.
Yeah, man, I love that scene. That was great. I mean, I think at the woman with the cat says that Ed is a transgender woman or something like that. Yeah, something like that. Which
isn't far off, but that's the point I'm trying to make is like you watch, because even though you know Ed's a girl, whenever you watch the show, well, I mean, I'm not sure about you, Jay, but for some unknown reason, whenever I watch the show after Ed's introduced, in my head, I still always make the mistake that she's a boy. And so, like you said, you know, you get that woman saying, "Oh yeah, she's a transgender," and it's like, well, to be fair, if somebody was to watch this show, like, and you don't watch it properly, and you like, you know, you might catch the, let's say, episode 10, and you see Ed, you're gonna be like, "Hey, he's okay, his little boy with the bendy arms." You know, you understand? So, like I said, so each thing that at least one of the things that each of these people talks about in one way or another is some form of truth in relation to the character or the portrayal of Ed, which I love.
Yeah, I think Ed is definitely very gender fluid. Definitely is like no kind of stereotypical kind of traits that you would place on Ed to say that she is a girl or he is a boy necessarily. The character is just written in such a way that she could be either or she could be both. You know, who knows? So yeah, that whole scene kind of plays out really, really well. So in the story, Jet has said he is kind of frustrated because he can't really get a straight kind of description from anybody on who Edward is, although we do get one kid who he talks to who refers to Edward as Radical Edward, which is apparently the hacking name that Edward uses. In the meantime, Ed starts hacking again, as she does, and enters into the virtual mind of the satellite that started doing all of these carvings. And then once she's in there, she realizes that the actual system is able to communicate with her via speech. So the two of them start talking, and the satellite doesn't have a name, so she decides to call it MPU because it's like CPU, only neater. Which I just thought was great. And then this AI system, this MPU, starts to explain why it's been doing all of these carvings on the landscape. And it says that it's trying to recreate certain carvings that existed on planet Earth that were destroyed after the gate incident. Now, Rich, I know you know a little bit about the backstory of the gate incident, and it's been kind of mentioned in passing in the series at this point, but without like too much detail. So can you explain just a little bit about what the gate incident actually is, and why kind of Earth is in the condition that it's in.
Well, basically, from what I can remember, isn't the gate incident, they were setting up like warp gates, and so basically this was going to be used for travel from one place to another. So this isn't like, even though this is set in the future, this isn't like, you know, Star Trek or Star Wars, where you've got ships that can, you know, participate in hyperspace or have warp drives. So what they would have is they would have these gates, and these gates were able to, well, you know, I'm not even going to even try and get into that science fiction part of it. That's number one, because I don't know. And number two, my boy's asleep, so he can't explain it to us. So I'm just gonna give you a rough idea of what it is. But it's almost like it can, I wouldn't say it can traverse space and time, but it's able to bend space and time within a certain degree. So traveling from one place to another is a lot quicker. And I think basically what happened is there was some form of accident with one of the warp gates. With one of the warp gates above the Earth, and it basically destroys, or, you know, takes out a chunk of the moon. And isn't that the same accident that happened that we get told about, that basically allows the little boy to live forever, give or take, in one of the early episodes?
It does, yes. It's in Sympathy for the Devil, I think it is.
Yeah.
They do describe it a little bit about what happens, because it's a result of the accident that occurs that that causes him to have the powers that he has. So they definitely do hint at it. And I think in session 4 as well, they kind of talk about the warp gates. One of the warp gates is used in one of the ending action scenes in session 4. So,
it is. So
you get like a lot of information, a lot of reference to that, but not a lot of information necessarily as to what the incident is. So
and basically, so obviously where the moon has been, you know, kind of splintered somewhat, that obviously has an effect on the actual Earth itself, because it's, you know, it's a worldwide catastrophe, give or take. But the thing is that, so that's give or take the accident in a nutshell that we're making reference to. But the thing that I find really, really fascinating is how they talk about Earth. Like they talk about it like, they don't talk about it in a good light. They're like, what, Earth?
Yeah,
that piece of junk, who wants to go there? And it's just like, where from there?
I was just going to come on to that, funnily enough, and talk about that, because that is something that's quite important to note with this series, listeners, is that I mean, as you would have known if you've been watching it so far, a lot of the action and a lot of the story doesn't actually take place on Earth. And you kind of wonder why. And then when you hear the way the characters talk about Earth, and particularly kind of after the incident that occurred, obviously it seems that people have decided that Earth is not really the place to be. I mean, it seems like most humans existing within that universe at this time are probably not even born on Earth. They're born on other planets, because they refer to, you know, the residents of Earth as Earthlings, and almost as if they're not of Earth themselves. But you know, they do take a dim view of Earth, as Rich said, and it's they're almost kind of seen as a bit backward, the people who live on Earth, and a bit oddball, you know. So yeah, you know, that's an interesting kind of idea. This idea that this society has kind of evolved away from the planet Earth itself, when, you know, we are so heavily tethered to Earth as viewers, and most of us will never get the opportunity to go up into space and exist on other planets and things like that. So yeah, it's quite interesting. But they do kind of, they almost treat them like hillbillies or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Well,
just throwbacks, like just I mean, I'll probably say hillbillies. Yeah, hillbillies, chavs. Just not in a nice light. Like, it's almost like it's if they didn't have a bounty to be chasing, they wouldn't be there.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So Edward, as said, is in conversation with this sentient satellite, discussing kind of where the landscaping drawings are coming from and things like that. And then Ed, I think, tries to draw something, but the police kind of block her signal. So she loses contact with the MPU at that point. And then on the Bebop, back on the Bebop, Jet kind of talks about all of the incredible different descriptions that he's got for Edward, and basically says he has no clue like how they're going to find Edward. Spike starts eating something that Jet brought back from Earth as a souvenir, because Spike was saying, "Oh yeah, bring me back something from Earth." And I guess there's some kind of cookies or something like that. I mean, that's what I assume they were.
They look like big versions of, those little, not Pockies or Pocos. What's the little bear ones that are like?
Oh, the pandas. The pandas. Little chocolate pandas.
They look like big versions of that.
Yeah, they did actually. Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah. So yeah, they basically have come back to the Bebop empty-handed with no real kind of leads on where Edward is. Then Jet discovers that the police are actually looking for Edward as well. But Edward contacts them through a hack job, and basically tells them that it was the satellite itself that caused the land carvings, and that basically she can help them kind of capture the MPU and get a reward, but only if they will do her a favor, basically. So only if they will agree to something. She doesn't specify what that thing is, but she makes them promise that they'll agree to it. She then kind of explains really that the only way to capture the MPU is by kind of flying directly to the satellite itself, avoiding all the other attack satellites that will open fire immediately if it senses anybody getting too close to the satellite, and then to download MPU through a direct line into the system. Jet is kind of skeptical of it, but Spike is now kind of up for the challenge and is like, yeah, this sounds like fun. So now Spike is ready to go in because it sounds like there's going to be some action. So the Bebop kind of heads off, and they discuss kind of the details of the plan and what they're going to do. And effectively, Spike is going to go off on the Swordfish 2. He's going to be the one to try and disable the satellites. And then Spike is going to get close enough to the ship. Get close enough to the satellite and then download the information from there. But as soon as Spike gets out, the attack satellites kick into gear and start firing. So Faye has to come out and cover Spike's back, whilst he kind of gets involved with the satellites and with shooting the satellites down, the defense satellites down. Edward then tells Spike that he only needs to get about 20 meters in, where the attack satellites won't risk kind of attacking a weather satellite that's also nearby and damaging that. So Faye kind of takes on the decoy role, which she doesn't like, because why would she? Like, who wants to be a decoy? So she complains about that quite vociferously, as she does. But the plan works, and Spike manages to connect up to the satellite, and Edward gets to work, and he manages to download the MPU. Back on Earth, Spike and Jet then try to go and collect their bounty, but the Earth police rule that the bounties are only issued to life forms and not to computers. So basically, once again, they don't get paid. And it's kind of through like a proper screw job from the police and the Earth government that they don't get paid. So, once again, they're left empty-handed. So the crew tries to fly off and say, well, sod it, we're going. But Edward reminds them that, they made a promise. And the promise was that she was going to be allowed to become the full member of the Bebop crew. Now, Faye obviously was the one who made this promise. Yeah. And Faye is like sweating like crazy and going, no, just ignore the kid and leave. Just ignore the kid and leave. So Jet's like, hold on, why? What did you promise? And she's like, it doesn't matter. Just leave. So they try and take off. But Ed is using her remote control again that she used earlier, manages to control the Bebop and then starts sending it crashing back down to Earth again. And then the next thing you know, she puts herself onto the ship. And that's that. Edward is now part of the crew. And Spike has this line at the end where I think he says he hates three things: kids, animal, and women with attitudes, or something like that.
Yeah.
And all of them are now on the Bebop, so he's pissed, basically. And then when they fly off from Earth, there's a new land carving left on the Earth, and it's of Ed's computer persona, which is the big smiley face with grinning teeth. A bit like the kind of acid symbol, I guess, is the best way to describe it, but with a bigger smile. And that's that, and that's the episode. Now, that was, like I said at the top, really, really funny. Like, this episode, I mean, I highly recommend you guys watch it if you're into comedy, because the comedic timing in this episode is just brilliant. And I said, Ed just kind of adds like a whole new dimension to the characters of Cowboy Bebop, and Ed just brings this constant, like, perpetual motion and energy, but then with really kind of abstract ways of thinking that just kind of completely clash with the other characters, who are all very kind of grounded and very gritty and kind of see the world in black and white. Ed sees the world in full spectrum color and has no problem telling everybody that she does. And she just makes a brilliant addition to the crew, really. But yeah, I mean, what did you think of the little gag at the end with Ed controlling the Bebop ship?
Listen, I thought it was wicked, but you know what it is? Like, I mean, this whole episode, Ed's just pulling the strings, bro. It's just a perfect episode, man. And it's just like there's so many layers, like, behind this episode as well, that, like I said, it wasn't until I finished watching it that there's very much a thing that they keep on making reference to aliens. That's number one, right? And it's only when you watch it and you're like, and this, like I said, this is episode 9, and you're like, hey, wait a minute, you've got like flying spaceships, you've got like super intelligent dogs, you've got warp gates, you've got like virtual, like real virtual reality, but yet there were no aliens. And the first mention that we do get of an alien is right at the episode of this, right at the beginning of this episode. Literally after it is like the first scene is you see Ed, and you're just like, you know what? You are the alien. Like, there's nobody else. And I mean, when you guys watch the other episodes for this show, there's nobody else out there like Ed. We haven't met anybody like her in the episodes before, and we're not going to meet anybody like that in the episodes after. And she has very much like this ET quality to her that she brings, like she, like, out of the crew of the Bebop, she's the heart of the crew. And it's one of those things, like I said, like watching, going back and watching this episode, it just reminded me of the reason why she's one of those characters, why she's loved so much. Like, I used to watch the show of My Ex-Girlfriend, and my ex-girlfriend used to go crazy every time Ed would come on the show. And actually, one of my friends called Rodell, I'm not saying that we didn't get on, but he's a mutual friend of my partner, of my wife, right? And we would talk every so often. And I don't know if you remember this, Jay, but we ended up having like a surprise birthday party for the other half quite a few years ago. And he said something, and he basically said, "Oh, Faye." And I looked at him and I went, "What?" And he went, "What's wrong?" And I went, "Did you just say, oh, Faye?" And he went, "Yeah, why?" And I was like, No. You just can't say that and then tell me, yeah, why? Like, I know where that comes from, but do you know where that comes from? And he was like, yeah, Cowboy Bebop. And I was like, we are going to be best friends. So it's one of those things where the character of Ed just seems to bring people together. And and it's one of those things where you're going to notice that from each episode onwards, how much she completes the show. That's number one. Number two, I don't know if you've noticed this as well, Jay, but when you think back to the show, it's only, like I said, it's only now that we're reviewing episodes. But how now that we know that she comes in episode 9, for your Jason old man memory and my old man Richard memory, in your head, when does Ed join the crew of the Bebop? Because in my head, she joins like episode 2 or 3, bruv.
Yeah. No, you're right. I wrongly kind of assumed she was there from the start because for all the reasons you gave, like she's a brilliant character because she just, as you said, she kind of balances out the other characters. She provides a completely different energy. She's just kind of perpetual positive thinking personified. And you know, it feels like the way that Ed just comes into this episode, the way she's introduced, the way she kind of plays off of the other characters, it just feels like she's been there the whole time. So like you, I was shocked. Like when we got through like the first 2 episodes and she wasn't introduced yet, I was like, huh? Like, did I have this wrong? Because I thought like Ed was there more or less from the beginning, but yeah, apparently not. So yeah, that kind of shows you like how good, you know, a character Ed is and how funny Ed is. There's some brilliant kind of quotes and dialogues in this episode as well, listeners. So what I'm going to do right now is we'll head over to our favorite website, which is Bebopopedia. If you don't know, this is a wiki for all fans of Cowboy Bebop, and it breaks down the episodes for you and gives you loads of quotations and trivia and things behind the scenes as well. So we'll get on to some of the quotes here. So yeah, this is the one that made me laugh. This was when back on the ship in the early part of the episode when Faye decides that she wants to go after Edward and try and find her. And, you know, Jet is saying, well, it's not going to be easy to kind of find hackers because, you know, they're good at kind of hiding their tracks. And Faye says, and I'll read you the quote, hackers are nerdy, pasty, tubby little geeks with triple thick glasses. And this one is probably a demented otaku with smelly feet. So catching him will be a breeze. Now, if that sounds like you, listener, don't be offended because we've all been that person at one point in our lives. But that line made me laugh, especially the otaku reference as well.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, that's so meta. It's like you're referencing your fans in your show. What's another one that I like? Oh, yeah, there's the quote from the end where Spike is complaining. And he says to Jet, do you know that there are 3 things that I particularly hate? And Jet says, really? And Spike says, yes, kids, animals, and women with attitudes. So tell me, Jet, why do we have all 3 of them neatly gathered on our ship? Which it doesn't sound like much out of context, but when you watch it in the episode, listeners, it's really funny.
Well, the thing, sorry to interrupt, Jay, but the thing about that quote in particular is because it's clearly just a continuation of that episode when Faye joins the Bebop. And he's just like, Jet, why is there a woman on the ship? I don't like women on the ship. Like, what's wrong with you? And he's like, yeah, you go tell her that. And then remember that it cuts, and then like you hear like the big bang, and Jet starts smiling to himself. So it just seems like Spike isn't having a good time. Like, everything he hates just seems to be following him. But at the same time, it's the one thing that's given him purpose, is giving him life for the moment. Should we say? So yeah,
exactly. I mean, this is the moment really where they become a family. So that's something important to consider, listeners, is you know, from this point on in the series, they truly are a family, and they behave towards each other as such. So you'll see that in the later episodes as well once we get to those. But there's a quote here as well for Jet for when he comes back from Earth after trying to find out information about Edward. And this is the full thing. So it says, Radical Edward's profile. He's 7 foot, ex-basketball pro, Hindu, guru, drag queen, and an alien. And that's basically all the things that that the people of Earth have described Radical Edward as to him. So yeah, again, when you see it in context of the episode, it is actually quite funny. I know I'm not doing it justice here, but yeah, you definitely need to see that scene when that plays out. So let's go into some of the themes and the different things that we see. So of course, again, the standard theme that we always get is that they miss their bounty. As you know by now, I mean, that so far this is 9 episodes that we've watched, and I think they've got paid once successfully. So yeah, you know, again, they're not getting paid. In terms of the references for this episode, apparently Jamming with Edward is the title of a 1972 album recorded by several members of the Rolling Stones. The title refers to sessions pianist Nicky Hopkins, a talented studio player who's played with such groups as the Beatles, The Who, Neil Young, and Jeff Beck, among others.
Okay.
So there's another Rolling Stones reference in there, because was it the last episode where there was a Rolling Stones reference, or is it one before? I can't remember.
Sympathy for the Devil is the Rolling Stones episode.
Yeah, that's the Rolling Stones one, isn't it? Yeah. At the very beginning of the session, MPU resembles the computer HAL 9000 from Arthur C. Clarke's book and Stanley Kubrick's film 2001: A Space Odyssey. Now, I actually missed that when I was watching it. I didn't make the connection, but now I've actually read that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The pictures drawn by MPU are identical to the famous geoglyphs in the Nazca Desert in southern Peru. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think they're in South America in when they land on Earth, and I think that's where they find Ed. So yeah, that would make sense. Right. So you were right, Rich. Uri Kellerman, the expert on the supernatural, is likely a reference to TV psychic Uri Geller. And now I see the name Uri Kellerman. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the names on Ed's computer, Tomato, is Thomas Wayne, which is likely a reference to Batman. I did notice that. Another name on the computer is Predator, which is also likely a reference to the movie of the same name.
Jeez.
I missed that one. I didn't see Predator.
I think Thomas Wayne. I think I've seen Thomas Wayne in another episode.
Yeah, I think the name Thomas Wayne has popped up a couple of times, because didn't that come up on the one? I want to say it was the episode where they first meet Faye, but I'm not sure. I
can't remember, but I know they were chasing somebody and they were going through a list of names.
Because I think it's the one with the casino chip.
Yes, it is. Yeah. You know what it is? I think it's when Jet might be talking to his buddy trying to get some info, and then he sees it and he gives it, and he's like, and his friend tries to basically say like, "Listen, I'm not going to tell you anything," and then Jet kind of holds him to ransom, and then like you see the names going up on the list. I think it might be that scene. I think it might be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so the drawings that the satellite is carving are recreations of the ancient Nazca line of drawings from Peru. MPU states he is recreating them with a 2% margin of error. These drawings are famous for their gigantic size and are the subject of a lot of controversy as to how an ancient civilization would create them, or why they even would. I think I remember reading about that somewhere some time ago, because I end up reading random things on the internet. But I remember there was some controversy. Some people were claiming that it wasn't possible for the civilizations that lived in Peru at that time to have done that. But given that humankind built pyramids, it's not that out of the stretch of the imagination. Although if you ask the people who watched that that History Channel show Ancient Aliens or whatever, then they'd say it was the aliens that did it. Yeah. Okay, so trivia. There's only 2 bits of trivia this week. Jet makes a comment in the episode about determining a woman's age, and it strikes a nerve with Faye. It's later revealed that Faye has been revived from a previous era and is in fact much older than she looks. This aspect of Faye becomes a key part of her character, and Jet's early comment is foreshadowing of this. So this is something that I think me and you have talked about on a previous podcast. But basically, listeners, Faye is a lot older than she appears. Again, I don't want to give away too much details, because we'll actually get into that in the series later on down the road. But Faye's been around for a long time. Edward reveals her full name to the satellite as Edward Hong Hao Pepelu Turufsky V, a hint at just how eccentric she is, which is true. And also, I know that that's not her real name or her birth name. She actually has a different name. But again, listeners, we won't go into that today because that's for later episodes, so we don't want to spoil that. But again, Edward has a very, very interesting history, just like Faye and everybody else. Edward does have a past, and you'll learn, as said, down the road, you'll learn more about that when you get into the series, and we'll cover that in future episodes as well. So stick with us. But yeah, that's it in terms of the trivia. So as said, that's kind of all the ground we can cover really on that episode. But yeah, I mean, echoing what we said at the beginning, Rich, I'm just glad that Edward's finally here, because now the gang's all together. We can get down to business.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, this is slightly going off, but this is something that me and Jason really haven't touched upon. Not because we don't like it, but because it's become such a staple that I think it just passes us by, because it is just a normal thing. But the ending of each episode of Cowboy Bebop, where they sing the real folk blues, which is like the ending theme, unless it's like a particular episode where they might have like another song that appears on the end credits. But in this one in particular, I don't know if you remember, Jay. I mean, I've actually got it here in front of me now. It's instead of just doing like the normal flashback gray scenes, this one is a flashback for Spike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's showing a flashback of Spike, and Vicious, and the blonde lady.
Ah, right. Okay. No, I didn't notice that actually.
Yeah, there's blood. Well, I assume she's a blonde lady.
I assumed it was just the same end credit sequence that we always get. But yeah, no, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. So yeah, and I mean, basically, I mean, guys, if you watch it, I mean, it's one of those things where when you watch it, certain scenes will make sense, especially in relation to the flashbacks that we've had from Spike, and then some of them will make sense when we get to episodes later on down the line, and then you come back and watch it. But it's one of those things I've always loved, that like the end sequence for this, just for the simple fact it's always reminded me of when you used to watch like the X-Files back in the day. And I remember, I think the first season, where at the end of the beginning credits, I think it used to say trust. What was the saying that the X-Files had? Was it like trust nobody or trust no one?
Yeah, trust no one or something like that. I think
trust no one. And then no, the truth is out there.
Sorry, yeah. The truth is out there.
The truth is out there. And then literally, I remember watching an episode, and I think it was in the first season. It might have even been like the last episode of the season. And instead of saying the truth is out there, it said trust no one. And I was like, mother, oh hey, you're talking to me. I'm paying attention. So I love those little. I mean, we're nerds and we're geeks, so we're always gonna love all these in-house strip references that a casual viewer might not know. So seeing this end sequence for Bebop, it literally just reminded me of just like, you know what? There's always something in this show that keeps on your toes. And like I said, once again, when you go back and you watch the show, you pick up on things that you missed, even though you may have watched the show like 15, 20 times, just, speaking theoretically. So I think that's one thing that me and Jay are going to start trying to remind you guys as well. Like, watch every single scene, and sometimes when these end credits roll on, maybe pay a bit more attention than you normally would.
Yes, I mean, that's very true of Cowboy Bebop and of a few other anime I could think of as well. The devil's always in the detail. So make sure you do pay attention to all of those things. But yeah, that's it for us. As said, you can kind of watch this episode on Netflix. If you've got a Netflix account, you can head over there and check it out. Or I believe it's also still on Crunchyroll as well, so you'll be able to check it out on Crunchyroll as well. And let us know how you found the episode and whether you're enjoying the series so far and all of that too. We'll have a short trailer at the end where we'll let you know how you can get in touch with us. So have a listen to that. And we'd love to hear from you. So yeah, please do get in touch. Otherwise, did you want to add anything else to wrap up?
No, I think that's it. Literally, keep on watching the show. Like, you're halfway there. Well, you're not even halfway there yet, but you're quite a bit in.
Yeah, we're approaching halfway, I think.
Yeah, and it's only going to get better. So
yeah, no doubt. Yeah, man. So that's it from us, listeners. Thanks a lot for joining us and listening along to the pod this week. As said, if you're enjoying the series, then please do let us know. And yeah, as Rich said, man, we've got plenty of more of these to come. Next up will be session 10, and I'm looking forward to covering that one, and I hope you're all able to join us. So yeah, we'll say goodbye. So it's goodbye from me, and Rich, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And we'll see you later, people. Oh, do you want to say the line, Rich?
See you, Space Cowboy.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. All right, people, take care of yourselves. Peace. Thanks for listening to us. If you're down with Wulong Talks, show some love by following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Wulong Talks. You can also find us online at www.wulongtalks.com or drop us an email at wulongtalkspodcast@gmail.com. We can also be found as part of the Britpod Scene Collective, and we're also officially E14 endorsed. Search for those hashtags to enjoy more content from us and from other great British podcasters.